Beneath the Mediterranean waves, hidden under centuries of sand and forgotten streets, lies the greatest mystery of the ancient world. This is Alexandria, Egypt, once home to humanity's most ambitious dream, a library that would contain all the knowledge in the world. In 331 BCE, a young Alexander the Great stood on this very shore and envisioned a city that would become the intellectual capital of civilization. But he would never see his dream realized. That task would fall to his successors. Meet Ptolemy I, general, strategist, and Alexander's childhood friend. When Alexander's empire shattered after his death, Ptolemy claimed Egypt. But he wanted more than just military conquest. He wanted to create something eternal. Around 295 BCE, Ptolemy founded the Museion, the museum, a research institution unlike anything the world had seen. Within its walls would rise the great Library of Alexandria, not just a building, but an obsession. Imagine walking through corridors lined with papyrus scrolls, hundreds of thousands of them. The smell of aged paper and ink, the whisper of scholars debating in Greek, Egyptian, Hebrew, Persian. This was the internet of the ancient world, and everyone wanted access. The Ptolemies were ruthless in their collection strategy. Every ship that docked in Alexandria's harbor was searched. If books were found, they were confiscated, copied by scribes, and the owners received the copies. The originals stayed in the library. This is Eratosthenes, the library's third head librarian. Using nothing but shadows, sticks, and geometry, he calculated the circumference of Earth with stunning accuracy, 2,000 years before satellites. The margin of error? Less than 2%. Here, Aristarchus proposed that Earth orbited the Sun, 1,800 years before Copernicus. But the world wasn't ready for this truth. His books were ignored, nearly lost to time. In Alexandria's medical school, Herophilus and Erasistratus performed the first systematic human dissections. They mapped the nervous system, distinguished arteries from veins, and understood the brain as the center of intelligence. Knowledge that would be forgotten and rediscovered centuries later. Euclid walked these halls, writing The Elements, the mathematics textbook that would be used for 2,000 years. 13 books of pure logical reasoning that still form the foundation of geometry today. Hipparchus cataloged over 1,000 stars, discovered the precession of equinoxes, and created the first comprehensive star map. His work would guide sailors across oceans for generations. The scholars here may have designed devices like the Antikythera mechanism, an astronomical computer so advanced nothing like it would exist again for 1,500 years. We're still discovering what they knew. At its peak, the library may have held between 400,000 to 700,000 scrolls. To put that in perspective, that's roughly 100,000 modern books, the entire knowledge of the ancient world concentrated in one place. An army of scribes worked day and night, copying texts in Greek, Egyptian hieroglyphics, Aramaic, Sanskrit. They translated the Hebrew Bible into Greek for the first time, the famous Septuagint. They preserved Homer, Sophocles, Plato, Aristotle. But they also preserved works we'll never see again. The lost plays of Aeschylus, hundreds of volumes by Aristotle we don't have, the complete history of the Phoenicians, Egyptian king lists going back thousands of years, mathematical treatises, astronomical observations, medical texts, all gone. So what happened? The popular story says Julius Caesar burned it down in 48 BCE during his war with Ptolemy XIII. Caesar's troops set fire to enemy ships in the harbor, and the flames spread to the warehouses, possibly destroying part of the library's collection. But here's the truth. Caesar probably didn't destroy the main library. Ancient sources suggest the fire damaged harbor warehouses containing scrolls waiting to be cataloged, perhaps 40,000 of them. A devastating loss, but not the library itself. The real story is more tragic because it's more human. The library didn't die in a dramatic inferno. It died slowly, from 1,000 cuts across 4 centuries. In 272 CE, Emperor Aurelian destroyed much of the Bruchion district during a civil war. the area where the main library stood. Buildings were razed, irreplaceable scrolls turned to ash. In 391 CE, Christian mobs, encouraged by Bishop Theophilus, attacked pagan temples throughout Alexandria. The Serapeum, home to the library's daughter collection, was destroyed. Scholars fled or were killed. Among them was Hypatia, mathematician, astronomer, philosopher, and one of the last great scholars of Alexandria. In 415 CE, she was murdered by a Christian mob, dragged through the streets. With her died an era. By the time Arab forces took Alexandria in 641 CE, there was almost nothing left to destroy. The story that Caliph Omar burned the library's books to heat bathhouses? A myth invented 600 years later. The library was already gone. Let's talk about what humanity lost. Of the 123 plays written by Sophocles, we have 7. Of Aeschylus's 90 plays, we have 7. Of Euripides' 92 plays, 18 survive. The rest, gone. The burning of Alexandria didn't cause the Dark Ages, but it symbolizes a catastrophic loss. Scientific advancement slowed. Medical knowledge regressed. Mathematical insights were forgotten and reinvented centuries later. What survived did so by accident. Copies of copies, hoarded by Byzantine monks, preserved by Islamic scholars in Baghdad, translated and retranslated. Each transfer introduced errors, losses, gaps. When Renaissance humanists rediscovered these fragments centuries later, it sparked a revolution. Imagine what else was lost: cures for diseases, technologies, philosophies, stories, an entire intellectual cosmos erased. Today, archaeologists dive into Alexandria's submerged harbor, searching for clues. Much of the ancient city now lies beneath 20 feet of water, preserved in the Mediterranean. In 2002, Egypt opened the Bibliotheca Alexandrina, a modern library built near the site of the ancient one. It holds 8 million books and serves as both a tribute and a warning. We live in an age of unprecedented information access, but digital data is fragile. Hard drives fail, formats become obsolete, websites disappear. We face our own Alexandria moment, just in slow motion. The Library of Alexandria was never just a building. It was an idea that human knowledge is precious, that it must be gathered, preserved, shared across borders and generations. Every library destroyed in war, every book banned, every archive burned, echoes that ancient loss. But every library built, every text digitized, every story preserved is an act of defiance against forgetting. The great library is gone, but its dream survives. In every library, every archive, every person who believes that knowledge is humanity's greatest treasure. The scrolls may have burned, but the fire they lit in the human imagination burns still.